Okay, so software escrow as a concept has been around for a long time. The concept of escrow is keeping something in trust or holding something in trust. Now, often people think of escrow as holding money or holding title deeds in trust. Software escrow is the concept of holding digital assets in trust. So traditionally that would have been source code. So many years ago, companies got set up as a software escrow vendor, and they would hold primarily source code in trust. Now, why this would come about is you've got a software vendor on one side, maybe a scale-up, maybe a startup, who wants to license their software to an end user, maybe a bank or an insurance company or a large enterprise company. Now, the question that may be posed by the customer is, what happens if you go bust? How do we get our hands on the source code to continue to maintain this software into the future? So it's obviously a risk element for the enterprise company, the end user, that if something happens to the software vendor, that they need this code to continue to maintain their systems. Now, as things have evolved, software has moved from on-premise, now primarily hosted in the cloud or SaaS software. So that has also changed the picture of what software escrow is about. So software escrow today, especially hosted in the cloud, is not only about source code, because that's just one element. It can be things like databases, where in the old days, those would be hosted on-site on an on-site server, where now if they're hosted in the cloud, in the event something happens to the software vendor, the end user needs to access their data, so they need an access point to that, and escrow is one of the tools that can be used for access of data in the event something happens to a software vendor. And the other bits are potentially entire environments. So it could be an entire AWS or Azure environment, which can be stored in escrow, in trust, that could be released in the event of a trigger event. Further along, other solutions that we have in place, which are part of software escrow, is the holding of access credentials. So access credentials that could be used to access an AWS environment or Azure environment, which are production environments, could be very complex banking systems. The root access credentials to that environment can be stored in escrow and would only be released under specific conditions. So that generally covers the concept of what is software escrow.